Okay, so today we're going to use what we know about finding geometric reasons to show that something is true or to prove it by doing a complete proof. So if you remember, I'm going to show you the two-column proof method. So one thing you can do is you can make statement, and you can have reason. Okay, so remember, you always want to start your proofs by what's given. Usually, that's a good idea. Now, we're going to do a full proof. I'm not providing any statements or reasons. I'm just going to go straight. We're going to do just straight from scratch, okay? You make a table. And when you do so, usually it is a good idea to start with the givens. Now, remember, there's two ways to get givens. You can either look at the diagram and see what you can see directly, or you can look where it says given. Again, remember, your goal is to prove something. In this case, to prove that these two triangles are congruent. So if we start with the givens, the first one is this one, right? So we go, so write it in like this, just as you see it. IK, hopefully you remember that means parallel, those two lines there. So you want to review that. Make sure you've got those down, the symbols. And what's the reason? Well, it says it right there. It's a given. We see it. So there's no concluding. We don't have to figure it out. It's just straight up given. Same with the next one, AL. And it's given. So KL, given again, right? Okay. But our goal is to prove that we have those two triangles are congruent. Now, one thing we know is that we need at least three things, right? So what do we know? What do we have in common? We have, okay, so we already have a side in common. But that's it so far, right? Because we have these parallel lines. That's not a side, that's not an angle. But now we need to do some brainstorming and think about what we know about the reasons. What I would recommend to you is to go through your reason list that I talked about in the last video about what are the different reasons, and it should be in your booklet, I believe on page, well, you know what page it is, let's see, because you took the notes on it, page 15 in this current version, and look at the reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it. You think there's actually two different ways I can get either a side or an angle. So I'm going to pause this, and you guys look at your reasons, think if you can figure it out, and then come back and I'll give you the solution. Have you found them yet? Well, the first one starts with the clue. Think of it as clues. Why are they telling us lines are parallel? When we're looking for sides and angles, and we know that lines are parallel, that generally means we can figure out angles that are intersected by a transversal. So here's one parallel. These two lines are parallel, but that means this is the transversal, right? What do we remember about that? We remember that alternate interior angles, in this case, this one and this one, are congruent. I need to get rid of that so you don't get confused with that. I'll get rid of that. But anyway, so we got this one and this one. So bingo, we got another angle, okay? So there's another angle around here. But there's another reason. Did anybody remember this? Always remember when you got lines crossing that you're going to have vertical angles, okay? Now, I should go back and reverse a little bit, and let me go back to the previous one where the angle up here. Let me go ahead and just delete that for now. Delete. I'll come back to that. So we prove that those two are congruent. So what is the reason? Now what are we going to put down? Now we can't just put given. It wasn't given. So the next thing is to make sure you label your angles correctly. Okay. So this is angle KIL is congruent to LBA. So you should understand how to put those in order. And then now, what is the rule though? Well, it's alternate interior angles. I'm going to abbreviate interior angles are congruent. Basically, you're just saying are congruent. I mean, if you put alternate interior angles or vertical angles, I'll know right off the bat that you know why they're congruent. Next thing is, okay, what was the other one? Well, it's the vertical angle. So we can put 2 dashes for that, 2 dashes for that. So KIL. So that's going to be what? That's going to start at ILK. So that's ILK is congruent to, I should have put, sorry, I put the wrong symbol here, my bad. It's congruent to this one down here, ALB, Why? Because they're vertical angles. So that's what it means to provide the proof, vertical angles, okay? Now, if that's the case, what do we have? We have, let's see. Oh, well, now we're ready to prove stuff because we got another angle, right? Now, the next thing is the order. Is it ASA? Because we got two angles, right? We've got this angle over here, this angle here, and this side. Is it ASA? Is it AAS? Let's make sure it's got to go consecutive. So we start here, we got an angle over here, an angle over here, and then a side. So it's going to be angle, angle, side, or I can put side, start in this direction and go like that. The bottom line is these two A's need to be next to each other like they are over here. So there you go. And that would be, by the way, you prove that angle, triangle, ILK, now triangle symbol is important, is congruent to BLA. Why? Because of side, angle, angle. And there you have it. So that's how you go about putting together a formal full proof. And again, you always start with the givens, right? Make a little 2-column thing, chart, table. Then you start with the givens. Generally, if you don't have any other information, sometimes some of the charts will give you information preloaded into this, and then you got to figure out what the match is. And then, but generally, you start with the givens, list the information they give you directly, put given, given, given. It can also be the symbols over here. If I would have seen these two symbols, I would have said, hey, these two, this segment and this segment are congruent because of the little dash. Then after that, you start thinking, well, what am I trying to prove? The givens give me a few things, but what else do I need? Do I need to show that these two triangles are congruent? And then you start looking at the hints. Like I said, they told us they're parallel. Well, that's not an angle. It's not a side, but we need an angle or a side. So what does knowing that they're parallel have to do with getting an angle or a side? So once you go through review your reasons list, you'll start to see, hey, when we knew that we had parallel lines and a transversal, there's alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, et cetera, et cetera. That's what you need to do to go through it. And if you do it enough and practice enough, it'll come automatically in your head, because that means you'll have internalized the knowledge and the geometric principles you need to make proofs. Okay, so that's the way to show it. I would try the next one. Try this one on your own. See if you can do it. I'm not going to make a video of everything. Actually, you know what? I'll tell you what. This is what I'll do. You guys go ahead and try this on your own. Try to make the column proof. And then after you've had a few minutes to try it, I'm going to come back and I'll show you the answer to it, and you can see if you can figure out the differences, if you got something different, and if not, please make sure to ask me. So one moment, I'll come back and I'll show the answer. Okay, so the first given is SQ is the angle bisector of RST, SQ. So SQ is this line right here. It bisects RST, so that's from here to here. So that means it cuts it in two equal angles like that. So I'm going to mark that up first, and it's going to be given. So, okay, so I did two things here for the first one. The actual given is they're telling us this is a bisector, SQ, right? And it bisects the angle. So that's given directly. So that's given. I listed as given. The next thing is, because we know it bisects the angle, we can then conclude that RSQ, this angle here, is congruent to the other one. So that would, the reason would be the definition of the bisector. So there's actually, as it's stated, it's given. To conclude that we have now two angles that are congruent is the actual definition of the bisector. Okay. Okay. The next, I've already marked it up over here, is this RSTS. And it's given, right, directly. Okay, now, what are we trying to figure out? We're trying to prove that angle R, this angle over here, is equal to that one, okay? Well, in order to do that, we need to figure out, we need to also know that these two triangles are congruent. And how do we know that? Well, if that's the case, I want you to take a moment. If you haven't figured that out, try to figure out why you know these two triangles are congruent. The reason they're congruent is because what do we have? We have a side in common here, so we have one side. We have this angle in common, so we got an angle. But we also have one other thing in common. Let's see if you remember it. If not, look at your list. This right here is congruent, these sides, because of the reflexive property, okay? So that means we've got another side in there. So what's the order? Side, angle, side, side. So this is going to be side, angle, side. So what it means is, and I'm going to write it in. Okay, so now what I should have put before I put that these are congruent is I probably should have put the reflexive, because that's what we use to confirm that we had a third side. So please, I apologize if you put this first, as my notes have it, but this should be first, because you need that third side to be proved before you can say that the triangles are congruent. Okay, so the order on this should be changed. Finally, how can we say that these angles are the same, R and T? Well, take a moment to think about what allows you to make conclusions about parts of triangles when you know that the whole triangle is congruent. Both triangles are congruent. Anybody remember that? Okay. Angle R is congruent to angle T because CP, CTC, congruent parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Once we know these two triangles are congruent, every corresponding side or side and angle is going to be congruent. Okay, so that's how you can put together full proof. So now what you're going to do is the next few pages, there's one that says beyond CPC that I want you guys to go ahead and try it out and then show me what you get and go from there. Oh, one last thing. Make sure to show me your notes so I can give you an A for the day on your notes, okay? Great job.